The lock turned with a rusty groan. Frank forced the key, feeling the years of dust wedged deep in its teeth. Crossing the threshold, a wave of cold and silence struck his face, the kind that had been building for years inside these walls. The air was thick with the scent of mold, damp wood, and forgotten memories. The peeling paint on the walls had yellowed and curled, as if the house itself shared in the pain of abandonment. A weak bulb hung from the ceiling, casting a pale yellow light that only deepened the shadows. In the corners, cobwebs trembled at the faint touch of a draft, as though the ghosts of the house were still here, watching. This had once been a place of victory celebrations and laughter. Now, it was only the shadow of a past life. In the center of the living room stood the old couch, the one where, after matches, he'd rest his head in Emma's lap while they whispered dreams of escape. "One day we'll leave this town," she'd say, running her fingers through his hair. Frank closed his eyes and drew a deep breath, but the air stuck in his throat. Even for a man fresh out of prison, freedom could feel heavy on the first day. He stepped into the kitchen. The wooden floor groaned under his weight. The cupboards were empty, all except for a single tin of coffee at the back of a dusty shelf. Inside, just a few dry grounds clung to the bottom. The faint smell carried him back to mornings when Emma brewed coffee as sunlight spilled through the window. "What did I expect?" he muttered, setting the tin back. It had been one day since his release, yet it felt like the world had rewound 15 years. A battered cardboard box caught his eye, half hidden under the table. When he pulled it out, he found a pair of boxing gloves, cracked leather, rusted laces. He held them in his palms, squeezing lightly. The weight, the smell, they were old friends. And then, from the depths of his memory, the sound swelled. The roar of a crowd, the call of the referee, the blinding flashes of cameras. He was back in the ring. 35-year-old Frank, the Wolf, stood victorious. His opponent lay on the canvas, and the golden belt gleamed in Frank's hands. The crowd chanted as one, "Wolf! Wolf! Wolf!" Emma was there in the stands, eyes shining, clapping until her hands burned. In the locker room afterward, with the belt slung over his shoulder, he'd hugged her tight. "This is ours," he'd told her, "for our family." She was pregnant then. The victory was supposed to be the start of their future. But that night became the fracture in his life. The celebration spilled into a crumbling stone club by the docks. The air was thick with cigar smoke and the metallic tang of dirty money. Men from the D'Alessio family sat in the shadows, glasses clinking, harsh words, a shattered glass, and then a gunshot. The crowd dropped to the floor. A young man lay still in a pool of blood. When the police arrived, Frank was kneeling beside him, searching for a pulse. The witnesses stayed silent, the evidence scattered. The headlines were ready. Champion's scandal. The trial was quick. The sentence was not. 15 years behind bars, and not a voice left to speak for him. Frank opened his eyes. He was back in the kitchen. He set the gloves on the table. His hands trembled. He put on his coat and stepped outside. The cold wind cut his face, but the chill inside him ran deeper. The streets hadn't changed. Narrow sidewalks, old shops, the same gray sky. But the stairs were different now. Some neighbors recognized him. Some turned away. Others whispered, "Isn't that the boxer? The wolf?" He kept walking, head down, pace quickening. A voice inside him asked, "Do they deserve your silence?" But the anger melted into exhaustion. At the corner, he met his old coach. The man was older now, leaning on a cane. "Frank," he said softly, "prison changes a man." "Life changes a man," Frank replied. The coach nodded. "Rings are empty these days. Men like you are gone." He almost said Emma's name, but stopped when he saw Frank's face darken. They parted without another word, though the moment echoed in Frank's mind for the rest of the day. At the grocery store, the man at the counter hesitated before smiling. "Been a long time," he said. "This place never changes," Frank answered. He bought bread, canned food, and coffee. "People forget. In time," the man muttered while counting the money. Frank said nothing, just took the bag and left. On the sidewalk, a small boy wrestled with the chain of his bicycle. 10 years old, messy hair, stubborn expression. Frank was about to walk past, but saw himself in the boy. The same determination, the same refusal to give up. "You're putting the chain on backwards," Frank said gently. The boy didn't look up. "How do you know?" "I made the same mistake when I was your age." Frank knelt, fixed the chain in 2 swift moves. The boy climbed on and pedaled. "It works!" he shouted. "Thanks, mister." "Mister? I'm not that old," Frank smiled. The boy looked him in the eye, half serious, half teasing. "Okay. Thanks, Wolf." The name hit differently this time, lighter, almost innocent. "Where'd you hear that?" Frank asked. "My grandpa," the boy shrugged, "said you used to fight like a wolf." Frank laughed, and it caught in his throat. "Tell your grandpa, the wolf's still here." The boy rode off, and a spark of something small and bright flickered inside Frank. Back home, he set the groceries on the table. The gloves were still there, beside a half-burned photograph. Young Frank and Emma smiling in the wind. "Why did you leave, Emma?" he whispered. After the letters stopped, he'd heard the truth. She'd built a different life. Their child had never been born. Was it grief or fate? He didn't know. He touched the charred edge of the photo and it crumbled under his fingers. From somewhere, maybe a gym across town, maybe just his memory, came the sound of a boxing bell. Frank stepped to the window. The sky was darkening, the shadows stretching long. Maybe one more chance, he thought. The room faded into black, leaving only the gloves on the table, waiting for a new story to begin.